Now, on offer here, you have some DVDs with the one and only Milton Erickson. That's correct?
Yes.
Now, you've assembled these interviews over a period of a very long time, I could imagine?
No. What I did was I went in 1979 in June. I went to Phoenix because I had read a book called Uncommon Therapy. I was working at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, and there was a case in that book that was so brilliant that I decided I got to find him, which I did. And I went in June of 1979 for 2 weeks, came home, totally changed my life, and then called him up and asked him if I could come again, and could I please bring a camera, because what I wanted to do, I had read a lot about his work, but I wanted to capture him on film because of his genius in being able to tune into people on many, many levels and to shift states of consciousness so beautifully that you have to have that kind of movement on film. You can read about it, but in order to use it, and you can experience it in your own way, using those films, which is what I wanted to do for myself. And I actually just got it for me at the time because I wanted to learn from him and to be able to integrate it in terms of how I worked. And so that's what I did with the films, and I took 2 weeks. I had no idea how to really use a camera. My kids used to kid me about pointing the camera. But I took a day early. I bought all the material, including the tripod and everything, in New York, and I schlepped it all to, that's a New York phrase, I took it all to Phoenix, and I went a day early, and I went into one of these electronic shops, and a bunch of young kids, and they taught me how to use the machine and how to take the film.
Right.
And so I went and I videotaped. The first day I didn't have the sound, so I had to go back for more lessons. And but I did 35 hours of Erickson, and they're still good. And what we did was I used them to teach for many years. And sometimes, a couple of years ago, I decided, people said you have to do something with these. And so I decided, okay, the only way we could do it was we had to use subtitles. And that is the hard part.
Oh, I see.
And so we started, the first volume took about 3.5 years with me, and I had 2 other people working with me. And the big challenge is to get the language exactly as we thought he wanted it. And sometimes when he got tired, he'd mumble a little bit. And so we had to listen and listen because of his love of language. I did not want to make one mistake if we could help it. And so that's why it took so long to make Volume 1. And of course, we made Volume 1 and people said, you've got to make Volume 2. So we did Volume 2, and that was another 3.5 years.
That's a lot of work.
So we're now working on Volume 3, and that'll be the 35 hours. We've done 24 hours already, and so this is another 12 hours. So the beauty of this work is to, if you listen to Erickson, I've listened to him now since 1979 when I did these films. And it's like every time I listen to them, and of course when I say listen, it's kind of like being with them. And I learned something new. And in terms of my work, I find that it's so powerful in how it affects being able to move into your own unconscious and to open up to somebody else with the precision that he was able to use. And I really think that his view of the unconscious is way ahead of most of what we all think in terms of how people really heal each other. I think Freud, and I was in analysis for many years, the beautiful gift that Freud gave us not only was his theory, all the theories of unconscious and his ideas of it, and his description of it, is that he got one person to listen to another person for 50 minutes, which is Erickson's real description of what hypnosis really is, which is an individual responding to the individual. And what he didn't say, but it's on unconscious levels. And that was my experience of Freudian analysis, except I didn't know as much as I know now because of Erickson. And I think that Erickson's use of his own unconscious was so easy and so open that being around him made it possible for people to become more tuning in to how they operate on that level and how to use it with patience. And the way to use that and learn that is by watching him, because he really knew it. Mm-hmm. He knew it in his bones.
That's right. We all know he's the one and only figure in this field for sure. I have one more question for you that I'm curious about. What was he like as a person?
He was huge, wide range. He was gentle, kind, rigorous, challenging, demanding of himself as well as others, I think. Hugely compassionate and hugely, what's the word I want? Clear about precision.
Right.
Clear about having something be exactly the way it should be on some level of receiving it, which is why he was able to use language, rhythm, cadence, music. He's like, when you watch the videos, it's like, how do I say it? It's like a symphony. He worked with different people on different levels in different ways. One of the major things he had was humor.
Humor, okay.
Oh my God. He was so funny. But his use of language when he was telling something that was funny was just immaculate, just absolutely impeccable. And to be able to listen to that language over a period of time really does have an effect on how people use their own connection with themselves.
Right.
I also think that people being around Erickson are so naturally tuned into their own unconscious, which is the greatest gift he could give anybody. And so that's really, what else to say? I have had so many things happen to me. I started listening, of course, in 1979. I don't know anybody who was around Milton Erickson who wasn't profoundly affected by his work, by him. Not his work, him, by the quality and the nature of his connection with himself. I think a large part of it was who he was, born with, but he also used his own integrity, beginning when he was paralyzed, neck down, could only move his eyes, could only talk, that he stayed with himself in such a way that he learned how to walk again. And he did this by using his imagination, by watching his little sister Bertha crawl on the floor and stand up and crawl, learn how to walk. And he would imagine this in his own mind in a rocking chair. And one day, he's doing this, the rocking chair began to rock, so they say. They say that it rocked all the way across the room. He would teach himself how to walk in terms of remembering how he pitched hay, how he had walked and run before, and his powers his ability to use his own inner mechanisms to somehow reorganize the patterns so that he was able to walk again. He did walk with a limp, he walked with a cane. But I think that self-knowledge of how he used his own inner connection with his inner self and the discipline of his mind gave him the authority that he had. Erickson could be very tough, very rigorous, and tough on himself as well as other people, I think.
Right.
And being around him was an experience that I think that made people be much more inwardly clear about their own relationship with themselves.